Did Shure just kill the SM57? Maybe not quite, but it's given it finally a great companion, and I can prove it. You see guys, this new technology in the Nexadyne 5 shouldn't even be possible. You've got two transducers working together. I don't think that's ever been done before, right? I guess at this stage, all I can say is if you're only using an SM57 as your guitar amp mic, then one, you're living in the past, and two, you should probably watch this video. Hey guys, welcome back to Soul String in this beautiful setting in southern Italy. Today, we are going to look at something super special. I'm going to show you, with the help of my friends at Thomann, why this $266 microphone might very well change every single thing that you know about recording your guitar. This is the first guitar amp mic with Shure's new patented Revonic dual engine technology. What it means for us normal people is two transducers perfectly calibrated, working as one. And that's what we like to see. I guess you might ask, what's the result of all of this? Well, very simply, 1, 20 dB better off-axis rejection than anyone else. 2, consistent supercardioid pattern across all frequencies. 3, the clarity that can rival $1,000 condenser mics. As an example, just listen to this. Same amp, same settings. The only difference is that one is an SM57 and the other one is the Nexadyne 5. Listen to the difference. My immediate reaction to that is this is going to be a great addition to anyone's studio because it's going to save hours in EQing. Okay, so here is where it gets really interesting. Every other dynamic microphone, including the famous SM57 by Shure, uses one single coil transducer, one diaphragm, one voice coil, and therefore one signal path. The Nexadyne 5 changes the whole thing. As we mentioned, it's two precisely calibrated transducers working at the same time. For silly people like me, basically it's having two mics in one. And I think it's really important to remember that this isn't just clever engineering. It actually solves some real life problems. For example, one problem is inconsistent polar patterns. What that means is that most microphones get a little sloppy when you have them off axis, and you need to be very precise with your placement in order to get a really good sound. And there's an art to that. However, the Nexadyne 5 makes that way easier because it maintains that supercardioid pattern across the entire frequency range. Another one, for example, have you ever had drum bleed ruin a really good guitar take? I mean, I definitely have. The Nexadyne 5, again, is really good at removing that bleed and focusing on the sound of your amp. And problem 3 is the placement limitations. Check out the side address design. This isn't just for good looks. It's designed very smartly in a kind of almost old-fashioned way to be placed above your amp without interfering with anything or blocking any of the other mics you may run. Okay, now let's talk numbers because I think it's a very important thing for this microphone, but we'll only talk about the ones that are really important. For example, let's start with the polar pattern. As we mentioned, supercardioid, which means it stays consistent across all the frequency ranges. 2, speaking about the frequency range, this goes from 50 to 16,000 hertz. And that, for example, is quite a bit wider than the SM57. Number 3, we have to talk about the sensitivity because that's super important in mics. It has a negative 61 dBV, which is perfectly matched for guitar caps. And last but not least, weight. Guys, you've got to carry these things around. And this thing only weighs a measly 295 grams, which is way lighter than you'd expect for this kind of technology. But as always, these are just numbers, right? And they don't really mean anything. For us consumers, we also want to save a bit of money or make things easier for us. And that's where the Nexadyne 5 technology really comes in. Look at this frequency response. A common mic like the SM57, again, just to use an example, will need quite a bit of post EQ in order to make it sound good and make it fit right within the song. The Nexadyne 5, because of that extended range, will automatically sound a lot better, hence saving you time and money in the post-production side if you're recording, or even if you're playing live. You won't need to mess around too much with your settings. It's already done for you. Finally, if we're talking about money, you've got to say that a 266, yes, it's a bit more expensive than some other microphones, but at the same time, you know what? A boutique pedal costs that much, so it's a well worth investment. But enough talking. I think we're all bored of this, so let's listen to a few more sound samples. We're going clean and distorted. We heard a bit of crunchy before. Now, one important premise I want to make about this is that I purposely chose a very small Fender amp, inexpensive, under 200 bucks. And that's because I don't want to use a 5,000 buck amp because everything is way too easy. And 90% of us won't own one. And I think it's important to play and test this gear with stuff that we actually have and with stuff that the normal person will use it with. And I almost forgot, all the recordings here, when I switch between the SM57 and the Nexadyne 5, the amp has exactly the same settings, exactly the same guitar. That's about it. There's no post EQing. All the differences that you hear is the microphone, and that's it. The difference here is really obvious. There is a massive difference in the EQ curve and even the levels of clarity and note definition. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed those sound samples. Before we start wrapping this video up, I just want to talk quickly about what I call real world impressions and reactions that I had to those sounds. Again, just to emphasize, I purposely chose a small, low-powered amp because most studios even don't use the Marshall stacks like they did in the 80s and the racks of stuff, except for the fact that you get the biggest sounds from small combo amps. But it's just not realistic anymore in the world of plugins, in the world of multi-effects, in the world of AI even. So I think it's just, again, important to evaluate this in a scenario where most of us are just going to be using run-of-the-mill guitars with run-of-the-mill amps. And that's the kind of gear that most of us will use. So having finished my usual rant, my first impression, especially on the kind of clean Fenderish sound, I was very, very surprised because normally that's the perfect SM57 kind of territory. It's a perfect match, but sometimes it can get a little harsh. With the Nexadyne 5, I found it was a well-rounded sound. All the harmonics were there. Nothing got compressed, especially in the middle, which is a common feature of some other mics. And it almost had that best of both worlds feel. So the punch of the SM57, but that great texture and color that condenser mics give you. Another thing that I found was particularly interesting is that it really kept the original character of the guitar and the amp. It was almost very transparent in terms of sound. And that's, again, something that you may like, you may not like, but I didn't find that it colored the sound in any significant way. That's what the guitar sounded like, that's what the amp sounded like. From a pure just player and not technical perspective, I'm assuming that's where the dual transducer technology really comes in. Every note was really defined, every harmonic even was very, very clear. And I almost felt like you could probably even skip the EQ section in post-production. Okay, so now I think we've got to move on to the price-value analysis of this product. Ultimately, the question is, does it justify the investment? So the Nexadyne 5 costs $266, I believe. If we take the standard, as we said, of the SM57, that's about normally $100. Is it going to be worth $166 extra? This is kind of how I look at it. If this mic saves me, say, 30 minutes of post-production EQ when recording my guitar, then for me, it's well worth $166. If you do it yourself, or if you pay someone else to do it, the price is going to be around that. So it really saves you a lot of money not having to spend that much time fixing the guitar sound post. Beyond that, I really think that you're getting a extremely high quality studio product, and having something that almost blends the worlds between a dynamic and a condenser mic is incredibly useful, especially if you think that it's a relatively small package. So finally, let's move on to our pros and cons. I'm going to be completely honest about this. These are my thoughts on the mic. Let's start with the pros because the sun is shining and we love starting with pros. No doubt, one, it's a revolutionary product. There's no doubt about that. No one has ever done this. So I'm someone who's always really excited about technology when it moves forward and provides a real value for the player. And this definitely does. Two, in terms of what it promises, it delivers on all of them. I personally have found that the incredible clarity is there. The off-axis rejection part is also there. It does keep the bleed out, which is what you want. And the consistent pattern across the spectrum is also quite obvious to see in the graphs, but also here. One final thing which I really love about this mic is the side-mounted design. I don't know whether they purposely did it or this was one of the ways they could fit everything in here. I have no idea, but I love putting microphones, just hanging them over the top. I find it easy, I find it quick. You position it, you don't have to mess around 4 hours with it. Simplicity is the key here. And I think this is a product that really takes away that incredible hassle finding the perfect position for the mic. Now, let's move on to the dreaded cons. I don't have a lot, to be honest, but one, obviously the cost is higher. If it's something that you use on a regular basis, then for all the reasons above, it's a justified cost. But if you rarely use a mic, maybe it might be slightly too expensive. Always something to bear in mind. Number two, sound, colors, all these things are down to preferences. It's personal taste. Some people, I can imagine, that find this mic almost too clear. Maybe it kind of differs from the traditional sound that we imagine in rock and that we've grown up listening to, which is the SM57. It's always a personal choice when making these decisions, when buying guitars, when buying gear. And it's something that you should probably just pay attention to and think about what kind of sound you want to achieve. And that's about it, really. Those are the only two things I can really think about. If you're serious about recording, even with price, you could kind of eliminate that one because, again, it's not a massive amount of money, is it? Was the Nexadyne 5 worth it for me? Absolutely. It really nailed it. The feeling that I got is that it's not just an incremental step up from the SM57 or the usual microphone technology. This is a massive leap forward. I'm always a bit wary about hype, but I've got to be honest, the Revonic technology included here is not hype. It's truly a big technological step forward. And you know what? It just delivers what it says on the box. And that's what we all want. So if we want to give it, like in school, a grade, I'm going to give it a 9.5. And the only reason for that 0.5 is that maybe I think some of you may think it's a little too expensive, but ultimately it's worth every penny. If you're recording guitar professionally, or even if you're just a hobbyist and play local gigs, this microphone should seriously be on your short list. So guys, I want to hear from you. As always, are you ready to upgrade? Are you stuck in your ways and you just want to keep the good old SM57? Hey, it's all up to preference. No one's right, no one's wrong. It's just points of views. If this video helped you make a decision and was useful for you guys, as always, please like, subscribe, do all that stuff that YouTube cares about. I don't particularly, but it will help the channel in the long run. And finally, I will put all the information to the Shure Nexadyne 5 in the description. I'll put my Towman link below. There's no extra cost to you, but it would really help out if you got it through there. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And as I always say, please be nice to each other. It's a beautiful world out there. So peace and keep rocking.